A little bit past 6 p.m., we'll go ahead and call to order this meeting of the Murphysboro City Council. I would ask that we would all rise. We have Pastor Fry here this evening. I'd ask him to come forward and lead us in an invocation, and then we'll follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you, Lord, for your presence in our lives and in the business of this community. Would you help us as business is conducted, that you'd be in the discussions, as opinions are voiced, as business is directed. Pray that you bless those who are beginning a new endeavor tonight as new members of this City Council. And Lord, we pray that you'd continue your blessing upon our mayor as he begins his next term. You know, the needs that are here, might they be as you'd have them to be. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, on our agenda this evening, we have a couple of items that are not typical. Of course, the first one is the swearing in of newly elected officials. And so we are going to, myself and Clerk Hunziker, come out to the podium in front of the council. I'm going to swear Gina back into office. Then she will swear myself back into office. And then after that, I believe Alderman McComb had spoken with the members of the City Council, both who are being re-elected, and then Mr. Austin, who is a new member of the council, will be sworn in as a group together. So once I'm done being sworn in, I'll come back here, and then if those members of the council who are going to be would come out to the podium at that time, we can get all of this underway. All right? Thank you. Okay, before swearing Gina Hunziker, I just want to say quickly that since she's been appointed to the City Council, she's done an excellent job. And I just appreciate her hard work and her attention to detail and her ability to keep the records that we need to have kept. And so, Gina, thank you so much for your service. We appreciate it. We're happy to have you back on the council again with us.
Thank you.
All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Gina Hunziker,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the ordinances of the City of Murphysboro,
the ordinances of the City of Murphysboro,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of City Clerk
of the office of City Clerk
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
I'll hand this to you.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Will Stevens,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the
Constitution of the State of Illinois,
the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the ordinances of the City of Murphysboro,
and the ordinances of the City of Murphysboro,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office of mayor
of the office of mayor
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gina. Thank you.
Make sure you face this way. Don't you, Jay? Face this way.
You guys come on out.
If you guys will join me.
Yeah.
Face this way.
Thank you.
Yes, I can.
There you go. Oh, we're doing that group?
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and the ordinances of the City of Murphysboro, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the office of Alderman according to the best of my ability. Thank you.
And I'm going to impose on our newspaper reporter, Mr. Winston. If you wouldn't mind, I'm going to walk back and join my family, and would you mind taking a photo of myself with my new arrivals? Okay, thank you.
Probably gotta go around.
No, I didn't.
Hey, Janine.
If those babies aren't the most cutest little things. Yes. You should have her now.
Yeah.
Are we passing those babies around?
Yeah, we'll be passing them around later. There's just something that makes you more nervous when your family's here. Hopefully I'll get through the meeting without too many mistakes. All right, Clerk Hunziker, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Hughes. Here. Alderman Curry-Witzman.
Here.
Alderman Brown.
Here.
Alderman McComb.
Here.
Alderman Urbis. Alderman Austin.
Here.
Alderman Bastian.
Here.
Alderman Campos. Here. Alderman Pittman.
Here.
Mayor Stevens.
Here. And I want to also express my thanks to the members of the council who were just sworn in. Appreciate all of your service, and also a particular welcome to Mr. Austin. It's good to have you on board.
Thank you.
All right, we'll get into the items here this evening. Up first, we have the consideration of council minutes from April the 27th, 2021, included in your packet. I'd entertain any questions or amendments to the minutes at this time. If there are none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Up next, we have the consideration of accounts payable, accounts receivable, and payroll registers. And we'd ask if there's any questions on the bills.
I have one.
Ms. Hughes?
On page 13, the William Myers remove equipment, is that on old cars, Chief, that we're sending to Canning?
That's correct.
Okay. And I think that's all I had. Leslie answered the rest of them for me. Thank you.
All right. Is there a motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Write down whoever you want, Gina. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, that takes us to our regular committee and commission reports. We have Budget and Finance chaired by W.J. Pittman. W.J.?
Thank you, Mayor. You guys took it easy on me tonight. I appreciate that. No items under old business. Under new business, we have presentation of financial reports by Scott Evans. Scott?
Thank you, Alderman Pittman. I have 3 reports tonight, which did not make it to your packets over the weekend. I just brought them in tonight. So it's some of they're familiar faces. These are reports that we do quite often. So I just want to report that the sales tax for this month was $255,940. So again, another month where we exceeded last year, but not by as much. So I don't know if we can read too much into that to, determine if some kind of trend is ending or what, but we'll just have to monitor that next month and see what happens. But certainly so far, first 5 months have been very, very good.
And Scott, remind me, that would have been for what, February?
Yes, February sales.
Okay.
Which, well, honestly, I guess the freezing cold temperatures and the Arctic blast we had for 3 or 4 days might have shut down some spending to some degree.
Well, certainly would have.
So we'll see if that was a fluke. But I guess I shouldn't complain and call it a fluke if it's still exceeding previous years. But anyway, it's not as much as it has been. But anyway, we'll see what happens with that. On the income tax front, you see we got a really big payment this month. And the reason for that is typically, if you look back through the history of this particular tax, we have gotten a large allotment in May, which represents the taxes that Department of Revenue collects in April, which is historically, a big month. So the reason it's probably not as high as some months, but yet higher than it has been, is I think because they kind of split things with the deadline this year. Last year, because of the COVID, everything was kind of shut down until July, even estimated payments and that kind of thing. So that's why we didn't get our allotment until August. And you can see last year in August we had $108,000. So that was the effect of that. This year, even though the extension is not till next week, they still made the first quarter estimated payments for folks that do pay estimates. That was still due April 15th. So I think you still had a fair amount of money coming in April. So that's why that was somewhat large. So I would suspect that next month would be probably a little more than normal because of the May 15th or May 17th deadline. We'll get that money next month. So, but all in all, very good numbers on that front too. So. Okay, so so here's the general fund, operating expenses compared to budget, like we look at every month. So through April, general fund has spent $1,707,000 and change, and we budgeted for $1,845,000. So we're still running about $138,000 under budget in the expense category. There could be a few things that start to swing that to a closer amount. We've had to do some catch-up payments due to some of the contract negotiation payouts. So I'm not sure if those all hit in April or some of those may still hit in May. So we'll see where that goes. But overall, the salaries are still within budget through 4 months. And the health care, I reported on the health care report last month. And so through 4 months, we're still running under budget in health care. So those are being contained very nicely at this point. And through the 4 months, we have brought in $2,374,000 in revenues, which has exceeded budget by $524,000 through the 4 months. But remember that $330,000-ish of that was the local Cures grant that the state passed out to communities for COVID-related costs. So that was kind of a fluky thing that is making that look better than it might otherwise be. So anyways, we're still running a nice surplus so far through the 4 months on the general fund. So, any questions on these three reports or city finances in general?
Have we paid the payment on the wastewater treatment plant this year?
Well, that's paid twice a year, May and November, so that'll be probably in this next check run, I suspect, or is it in this check run? Last check run, okay. So it's due May the 11th or 12th, something like that.
Okay.
Well, today's the 11th, so, and then we'll get it again in November. So.
Just curious, I couldn't remember if I'd seen it.
All right, thank you, Scott.
Okay, you're welcome.
Is there any public comment under budget and finance? Hearing none, we can move out of budget and finance.
Thank you very much, WJ. We'll go to Building and Grounds, chaired by Mr. Gary McCall.
Thank you, Mayor. We have no old business, no new business. Is there any public comment on building and ground? Hearing none, we can move on, Mayor.
Thank you very much. That takes us to Community Relations, chaired by Mr. John Irvis. John? Is that mic on?
Now it is, I think.
There you go.
There you go. No old business, 2 items of new business. Number 1, dedication of Murphysboro Masonic Lodge. Number 498, I think there was a street closure, Gary, was that, you mentioned that last month?
I believe that is a street closure. Is there a representative here from the Masonic Lodge this evening? I thought there might be one here, but perhaps there isn't.
So we don't know a date or a time.
Gary, had they talked to you about this one?
They were supposed to get a hold of Sandra and get a date in June on a Saturday, was my understanding, for their celebration.
Sandra, have
Seems
you
like
heard
it was
from-
150 years or something, Sandra?
Yeah. I was going to say, I thought it was July.
I guess we put that on the next meeting.
Yep.
Then we request for street closure from Bruce Brothers for Friday, August 27th from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m.
So move is for the service dogs.
Yes, yes.
So I would like to make a motion.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No? All right, that passes. Thank you. Any public comment on community relations?
Yeah, John?
Yes.
I think we talked to Blue Brothers before about doing something with that stage up there. I don't, unless they've shortened it, you can't get a wheelchair between it and the curb. We had that complaint in Apple Festival, as people try to get down through there in a wheelchair and couldn't get by it. So we need to ask them maybe to move that back a little bit.
Makes sense to me.
That's all I had.
How do we accomplish that?
I'm texting Kyle right now.
Okay. Any other public comment? Can move on to community relations, Mayor.
Thank you very much, John. All right, that takes us to Public Improvement, chaired by Mr. Mike Bastian. Mr. Bastian?
Thank you, Mayor. We have nothing listed under old business. We do have 2 new items listed under new business. One is the discussion regarding dilapidated housing, and the other is the discussion regarding parking on Murphy Street. Those were added on here by the request of Barbara Zimmerman, and I believe the Zimmermans are here this evening. If you would like to come up and address the council. If you would, please state your names for the record.
Corey Zimmerman.
Barbara Zimmerman.
Go ahead.
And I am reading this for my mom, Barbara Zimmerman. We live at 324 Murphy Street. The house with the trailer to the east of her home, the house with the trailer that lives to the east of our house are both vacant. The house has had no one living there for 8 to 10 years, and the trailer 2. We understand that the landlord is Ronnie Bashan, and we've been told that these 2 properties have been condemned, and I think 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I know the city was looking into about tearing them down, but it was something with the courts or something like that, I can't remember. And if nothing is being done, you know, why is Mr. Bashan not being held accountable for the looks and the safety of these properties? Because we've had to call the cops numerous times to get someone down there, because to get in touch with him, because doors are blowing off, windows are getting broke out, stuff like that. And in the last 2 years, my mom has been harassed by people in the neighborhood. She ended up having to get a P.O. box last November, because on 3 or 4 times a week they were using her old mailbox as a drop-off and pick-up for drugs. 3 attempts so far this year. There's been attempts at breaking and entering, always looking for a woman named Allison. The last time he was actually about 2 weeks ago. I was just about to have my son down for sleep, and I heard a knock, and I thought it was my mom knocking on the wall to get my son to go to sleep. And I said, "Mom, how come you didn't tell Ethan to calm down?" And it was like someone was knocking on the window. I said, "Well, go call the cops. I'm going outside." And as I was coming out, they were running towards the east and then towards the north. And she has noticed a dark truck that drives down the alley and likes to shine a spotlight into the kitchen, and then they will drive to the front at times and shine a spotlight into her front window. And let's see, okay, they're constantly running the house, knocking on the windows, and they stand on the deck. We have a deck box out on our back patio, knocking on the kitchen windows. Her patio furniture's actually been rearranged a few times, and they've actually been burning their own trash, like whatever they've had, you know, paper or whatever, on our patio. And they have tore up her dryer vents on the outside of her house 3 or 4 times. The front door jamb has been jimmied. We've ended up having to replace that. And my mom is asking in a civil manner to all the board members, with respect, is would you put up with these circumstances in your neighborhood? She calls the police, and she knows that the police do not personally work for her 24/7, because the police job is to protect our rear ends, not kiss our rear ends. And we also asked for that a sign could be put up at the dead end for the people to turn around. And I do have pictures if the council members would like to see how the cars park at times, because it is difficult.
We do have squatters that live in the house and the trailer. And you can see that all the time. You can see the flashlights going on, the dark truck that comes down. He goes in there and into the trailer. 2 years ago, one of the police officers told my son when they went in the basement of the house that there were signs that they were making meth at that point there. It's a harassment. I just don't know what to do. I mean, if this houses have been condemned, why can't they tear them down? I truly feel that that would lessen a lot of the stuff that goes on there. You know, I mean, it's not fun to sit in your kitchen at 8 o'clock at night and they're knocking on your door wearing a mask or your window waving at you or something like that. I've actually got out a small handgun and waved it back at them, not turning my head, looking at them, just showing it, and they leave. I mean, you get to that desperation. So I don't know how we can put up with that. Then there's the parking issue where it is dangerous. We have pictures. They park onto the dead end, turn around. They live in the last house on the south side of the street. He parks his truck 2 to 3 feet out into the road. So when you have company to come down, one of them has a large van, it's very difficult to turn around. So we don't know what to do. And I do know at one time, many years ago, the city came down, put dead end, no parking, and they had put no parking from here to the dead end signs, no parking from here to there. So it's like, I know we're an old neighborhood, but I fought to keep those brick streets. So we have some history there, and it's being ruined.
And back to the parking issue, last year, I had 2 officers showed up knocking on our door, complaining that I wasn't 15 feet away from the fire hydrant. Now, I could see if I was parked in front of the fire hydrant, but I actually got a tape measure out and measured. I was 13 feet 8 inches away from the fire hydrant. I got out and moved it. Neither cop issued a ticket, but Murphysboro, the PD was down there. You'd have thought I'd had weapons of mass destruction at our house. So that's how quick it is. So in return, they had a friend parked in front of the fire hydrant. I called PD, and 15 minutes later, I know it was out of, basically, pardon my language, but I was pissed off. They call us, the cops are right there, we call them. Of course, her grandpa is a little out there, and he went and warned them, so they quickly moved. So by the time PD got there, where's your evidence? So it's just stuff like that that gets us. And like I said, the truck, 3 to 4 times a week, he's got his boat and trailer hooked up to his truck. He's going across the sidewalk. Granted, it's on the dead end part of the sidewalk, but I thought under city ordinances, you're not allowed to block anything with the sidewalk, and his boat being on the trailer sits on the sidewalk too. So it just gets old and tiresome.
Well, I appreciate you coming to the council meeting and expressing your concerns. I know that I've talked with the chief many times about various issues on Murphy Street, and I think maybe the best thing first question I could have is, have you met with anybody from the police department recently about these issues, or have you at any point? I believe you have, I think.
Yes.
Okay. Well, perhaps we can arrange another meeting to try to review these issues and also get with the street department so that we can take a look at where the parking requests that you have, whether or not we think they work, for the neighborhood as a whole or not. But I do realize personally, because I've been to some houses over there whenever we've had issues, that there is a persistent issue there, and I appreciate you expressing it here. Mr. Bastian, I'm sorry to step on.
No, that's okay. Go ahead. I do have a question for Eric. Eric, do you know anything about the dilapidated, the trailer they're talking about? Do you have anything written up, or have you been down there?
I shut the thing down, you said, 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
2 years. I know it's back in 19. Yeah, I got them out and the board were falling in back then.
Yeah.
Got them out. It's on the demo list in process as we speak. I've been talking with the owner and the bank because you got a mortgage against it. The bank's pressuring too, so I'm trying to push it on a couple different points to get that. Either do something or I'm going.
All right, well, could we move?
It's in the process, in the demolition process.
And I know it takes a long time, but could we start moving? Could you check on that and start moving forward on some of that?
Is that particular address open in any way? Are there doors or windows that are open?
I've been down for a few weeks, maybe longer than that, maybe a month I've been out there. They may be, I didn't crawl under the trailer. They did take some underpinning off. They may have tunneled up through the floors. The doors were locked and shut the day I was there.
Yeah, we called the police several times about the open doors on the garage on the house and on the trailer, but the windows are all broke out on the trailer, and they just got
back down there. You see about boarding them up?
Yeah, well, they get boarded up like the house, and somebody went down and took them all down.
But when you're using thin plywood instead of, like some Advantech or 3/4 inch plywood, it's sometimes the wind does it and it's something small, it can be ripped off. I know on the front door of the house, it was boarded up, but when we had that snow back here in February, the wind and everything, it was blowed off or got ripped off. And it was in the turnaround there too. So, I moved it. My neighbor, she saw it. And I moved it and put it back up there, and I think my mom might have called you the next day to let you know that it had been blown off or something.
Well, these guys have gone, no goods have gone to such an extent. I think they tried to patch a couple holes in the roof. They got on the roof and dug their way through the roof to get in.
Yeah, it's a big hole.
It's the extent that these people lose in these houses.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much for coming to the council and sharing your concerns, and we will do
Mayor, I have
everything we
a
can
question.
to follow up. Ms.
Could
Hughes.
I ask a question? I'm sorry, I didn't hear who the owner of these properties are.
Ronnie Bastion is what we've been told, Ron Bastion.
And how do we get a hold of that person? Have we? Eric?
Yeah, I just talked to him about a month ago.
And that discussion,
The bank that has a mortgage called him, and I talked to him too, so we're pushing on 2 or 3 different fronts. Either they do something with it, or I will. But it's still in the process to go to court, get it torn down.
how do we hasten that?
Just, I guess, keep on going with it. There's processes that we have to go through by state law.
Yeah, I understand there's mandates, but what, I don't,
Go to court with it.
I mean, we've been talking, she's been here several times. I mean, when we met during the pandemic in the other room in the auditorium, she was here with concerns about that house. She was, back in 19, we were still in council, she was here about that. I don't understand why, personally, that it's gone this long.
Richard
And-
Blake, can you help clarify the process any for us?
Eric has gotten to me, his file, the paperwork needed to file our demolition complaint with the court.
Okay.
Get that ready, once that's filed with the court, Mr. Bastion and the bank, I believe they're the only parties interested in the property. I just reviewed what Eric dropped off quickly here today.
Can you just pull your mask down for a minute to help everybody hear?
Eric has dropped off to me his file with the paperwork we need to prepare and file a demolition, also court order to demolish these properties. In my quick review, what Eric dropped off today, I believe the only parties interested in the property are Mr. Bastion, the owner, Campbell Hill State Bank, who holds mortgages against this property. When our complaint is prepared to file, they will each be served with summons, giving them 30 days to respond to the court. We'll have to see how they respond to the court, or if they do. From there, based on what their response is, with some of these demolition cases, nobody responds. And we ask the court that we have an order by default. If they answer, deny our allegations, we'll have to address those through a hearing before the judge.
But Attorney Blake, I have a question for you. Am I hearing you correctly? The process is just now starting? It's
That's
never
what it
been
sounds
started
like.
before? For the last 2 years, nothing's been done, is what you're saying? It's just now starting?
Well, not through the court. I'm not saying that.
Well, that's what I'm saying, but there's not been anything filed or process started with the court.
And you just have received those papers recently. Thank you.
Did you guys want to see the parking, or you're just going to take our word for it? Is that okay?
Yeah, or this would be.
Well, do you have hard copies or just on your
No,
phone?
we just have the phone.
Would you mind to just email those to me and I can share them with the council?
Yes.
My email is easy to remember. It's mayor@murphysboro.com.
And you're going to have Darren go down and look at that situation for parking areas?
Once I get those photos, I'll forward them to him.
Okay, thank
so
you.
that he can have a better idea of what to review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. With that being said, we have nothing else under new business. We can close public improvement, Mayor, and move on to public works.
Mike, I had one question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
It's coming to the meeting today on 17th Street across from the warehouse, the fenced-in area. What's going on there?
The fenced-in area across from 17th Street is the continuation of railroad remediation work that was done on South 17th Street across from the Logan Museum. And I know that Amy Mills and 17th Street have big plans for that area. There's going to be nice lighting and walkways installed there and things. And so that's what's going on there.
Good.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to Public Works. We have no chair of Public Works at this time. I'll be appointing one at our next meeting, so I'll handle these items. We have no old business. Under new business, we have discussion regarding the oil and chip program for 2021. I believe distributed in your packet was a list of locations and also quantities. One question that I had was that the quantities, I don't know how to quantify them into dollars. And so in looking at these various places and then looking at what we typically budgeted for the work in the alleys, I didn't know how our budget lined up with these. And so I didn't know if Mr. Sheffer could help clarify that for me, or Harold, can you clarify that for me?
Are you looking at this list?
I'm looking.
I don't know what list you have in here.
I'm looking at the one, it's an Illinois Department of Transportation list. Am I looking at the wrong list? It says municipal maintenance operations.
Yeah, that was the council prepared a list last year of the worst locations. And again, typically we do this in quadrants, but we got out of that last year and did prepare a list of, I think various councilmen had gone around and looked at all these alleys. So these are kind of the worst ones. The dollar amount for this list, there's 33 items on this list, is $33,355.
I see, okay. I was looking at the quantity in square yards, and I didn't see that total there, or didn't see it as a dollar amount. So excuse me for not reading that properly. Ms. Campos.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a beautiful list. I counted 11 alleys, okay? But on North 16th Street, from Liberty to, from Walnut to Grace, a minefield. I mean, both sides of the road, there are potholes on 16th Street and Grace. That is a really high traffic area. I mean, the potholes, you really have to. And my point is this, I understand the alleys. The people use them to get home. But in front of the alley, there is a street, a public street, that is used by everybody. And I understand that they want their alleys, but I see the situation on North 16th Street, or I see it on 15th Street. I don't want to say 14th Street because that's a state property. I see Somerset. And how can we fix alleys, 11 alleys, when I have street blocks, like 12, 16 blocks of potholes and potholes and potholes? I have sympathy for the alleys, but I really, really, really like the streets better. That's my point. I can bring pictures because I counted with my granddaughter the other day over 20 potholes on 16th Street.
So what, Mr. McComb?
Well, if we don't do some of those alleys, we're going to lose them. I mean, these garbage trucks, that's their main transportation down them. If you drive the one behind my house, it's worse than most roads in the county anywhere that dead end. There's holes, they're deep, and them trucks are just beating them deeper every day. We've got to get the alleys fixed too. Darren is looking at a new machine. It's a hot patch machine. If he gets that lined out, these potholes can be fixed on the streets where it'll stay, because they use hot mix instead of cold mix, and it'll be there. You can saw them out, put some prime with them and roll them, and they'll be there for a long, long time. But we got to get these alleys up in good shape. I mean, there's 3 garbage trucks a lot of times in one day go up and down the alley behind my house, and every time they turn a corner, they flatten the culvert.
Shouldn't we charge them?
But if we do decide to do the alleys, Darren's got to have 6 weeks or so to get them ready. So it's something, we need to know.
Mayor, should we have a surcharge to the
trash companies?
disposal? Yes, because they are the ones who have used the heavy equipment, and they are soft material per se. They are not stiff as construction, with strong construction as it is a street road. And that's fine, we all pay taxes, but they are the ones who are ruining the alleys for the residents. So I'm sure that if you tell them there is a surcharge, they'll find a solution. Trust me, they charge us if we put extra trash. So.
Well, I think whenever Scott Evans gave the budget report earlier, we are, what do we hear, Scott, $100,000 something under budget on expenditures to this point this year?
In general, yes.
And then I look at the price on the alleys, and we're talking about $33,000. We have the money to do these alleys and to do a road project this year. We have the money to do it.
Scott's wanting to tell you that it's not one big lump sum.
It's all one big pot of money. When it comes down to it, when it comes down to it, if you can get 6 people on this council to vote to spend the money, we can spend the money. Mr. Evans.
Well, I just had a question about this document, because I don't think it actually talks about dollars, but I did the math here, and I think the 33,335 is actually
square yards.
Square yards.
It's a square. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Somehow it's going to be 300.
Well, I was confused about that, but I trust what Mr. Sheffer told me, that it was the $33,000 that was.
That is square yards.
Okay.
The dollar amount should be on there. Maybe we should hold them to that.
Yeah, I think we should, yeah.
I like that.
Mine's less, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I doubt it will be less, Harold.
Well,
And we will be, we'd be happy, but I know the last overlay projects that we did, we put costs on a number of projects, a number of streets that weren't done, so, if we can have a list of streets you want to see prices on, it doesn't take very long to put costs on those.
well, I've heard about 15th Street for a while, so it probably ought to be on the top of the list.
And 21st.
And
Have you driven into the historic preservation area recently?
well,
We could go on and on and
the
on.
wheels are getting squeakier.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't think we can act on this without dollar amounts in front of
No.
us.
I agree.
I don't want to.
So,
But I support the alley.
Well, and do you think that Darren should look at this and, sorry, Darren, look at this list? Because this was made, what, a year ago or more?
And at that time, these were the worst ones, but
Okay.
not any better.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's what and you were involved in this list. Okay, thank you, that's fine then.
This list was given to us
By Public Works? Okay, thank you. You don't think they've gotten better on their own, huh?
I do like Gloria's idea of considering some sort of charge. I don't know how that would work, but it's absolutely right that there is one group and one group only that is turning our alleys into dust, and it is the trash trucks. And we know that they are overweight, at least many of them,
They have heavy equipment.
comparatively to our ordinance. And so I don't know how that would work, how you would consider it, what other communities may or may not do, but it is a thought, because they are the primary impact on the alleys. Other thoughts? Questions? All right, well, we really need to be ready to act on this at the next meeting, because Darren does need the time to prepare and all those things. So if we can get some cost estimates together, and I would encourage aldermen, if you have specific street projects, we've done this in years past, to email me, tell me exactly from where to where, so we can get some estimates on those too. People expect to have decent infrastructure in their town, and I don't want to be irresponsible, but while we are seeing increased tax revenues, I think the citizens of Murphysboro would like to see us spend that in infrastructure as much or more so than anywhere else. So,
And Mayor, with all fairness, I have seen the list, and I know the projects that Darren have tackled on it, like Christie Street, that it was a skate rink, basically, almost a lagoon. And I saw the pictures, and next time I'll be more than happy to bring pictures of the street with the number of potholes and share with everybody. And if everybody does that, maybe we can, in all our districts and all our wards, maybe we can see the reality, how our streets are. And then go from
We
there.
all see them, Gloria. I mean, we all drive the streets. I mean, we see them.
Yeah, and I know on 16th Street, we have two schools, high school and Carruthers.
Right.
So the traffic is really high over there. I'm not putting like a Walnut Street, but we can pinpoint as an elected official, where are the problems, where are the holes? Because I feel like the only one who comes with a banger all the time, we have potholes, and we all should say in our district, we have these problems, and then we can tackle on them.
WJ? Okay.
No, what?
All right.
I
Well,
agree. I don't disagree with you.
I thought you had.
I have nothing to add. Okay. Said it all.
All right, we'll move into the consideration of engineering services agreement. I have here a giant, unless there was somebody else had something on that issue, but didn't look like they did. I have this stack of paperwork here. Somebody tell me about it.
This is the agreement for 7th Street, engineering agreement, and money, $200,000 appropriated by IDOT for the engineering testing for that project, construction engineering.
And you've been, but I'm fine, we're going to pass this, but I mean, you've already been doing the engineering on this project, so is this something?
This is for construction.
Okay.
So work performed during the construction of the job.
All right.
And like I said, the last meeting, we passed the appropriation that, I feel very comfortable that, we're not going to hit this number. It's only a projection that, weather permitting, be, 9 months to a 1-year project.
All right, is there any questions from the council?
Mayor?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I'm regressing. And I understand that this is for the new project, but on this municipal maintenance operations, there is a location of 7th Street to the Enterprise Avenue for resurfacing. Does that need to be off of there if we're doing this?
Well, again, did take 7th Street off. 7th Street was on.
Okay, this says future lane from 7th Street to Enterprise Avenue. Would this new amount that we're doing incorporate that in that, or is that a different area?
I think, I don't know exactly where that's from. It's future lane.
Future lane.
To Enterprise.
Yeah.
Future lane, not 7th.
Okay, so we can kind of assume that the new 7th Street project it does not include that? It's like 4,100 square yards that we could use somewhere else if we don't need to do it, if it's going to be incorporated in the 7th Street area.
This is on future lane.
Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry, I regressed there, but there's no use, if it was incorporated into it, there's no reason to put any more money in it. Yeah, thank you. Thanks.
All right, is there a motion to adopt the agreement?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any public comment on Public Works? Mr. Mills.
After a well-placed letter from the city attorney, the potholes have disappeared out of the county. I don't know if you guys have heard about it or not. Not sure who took care of it.
Where is that, Darren? Oh, good.
The one there at the entrance to Kroger.
Yeah.
They were sawing that out and pouring it all back in, so that's good news.
Good.
Thank you for mentioning that, Darren. All right, we'll go into public safety chaired by Mr. Russell Brown. Russell?
Okay, we don't have any old business. There's no new business. So is there any public comment?
All right, thank you, Mr. Brown.
If not, we'll come out of public safety.
That takes us to personnel chaired by Ms. Barbara Hughes. Barb?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. There's no old business, no new business unless someone comes up with a contract we have to negotiate.
I hope not.
It's like, Sandra and I have nothing to do now.
Right.
That was a joke, by the way. She has plenty to do. There's no new business. Is there public comment on personnel? Hearing none, I think we can get out of there, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, that takes us to the mayor's report. We still have on here the discussion regarding the liquor license renewal at 1501 Walnut Street. Darren, I can't recall, at the last meeting, did I ask you to measure that off again?
No, you didn't. You said something about it.
Okay. Well, I don't really have anything new to add about it at this time, but if between now and the next meeting you could do that for me, I'd appreciate it. And you may have already done that for me once in the past, have you?
I have, and I want to say it was 97 feet was off the top of my head.
All right, well, I'm sorry that I didn't do a better job of following up on that, but we will look at that again. The second thing I want to mention here is that there's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of years about the fact that our police and fire station was built, I think sometime in the 1950s, the core of that building anyway, and there have been various issues concerning mold and old tile, and the building itself is just out of date. We've had concerns from some members of the council about just the look of the old metal awning being rusted, and there are some things that we could use, not to mention the fact that we are spread out across I don't know how many buildings, to be honest, and many municipalities across the country have begun to consolidate their resources so that things are under one roof. It creates one stop for residents. I think it creates a little bit of synergy amongst your employees. And so I think that we need to get a building committee comprised of members of the council put together to start researching, along with Scott and Sandra and the other department heads, what it would cost, other communities that have recently built new public safety centers and city halls, and see what we can do, because there would be some cost savings. Certainly it would be an expense, no doubt about it, but we may want to look at doing that in combination with some sort of larger infrastructure package for streets, sidewalks, and whatever. How we go about funding it, I don't have the exact answer at this moment, but these types of things, no different than the wastewater treatment plant, they have to start somewhere, and that starts with a conversation. I have talked to Mayor Pro Tem Mr. Urbis about perhaps chairing that committee, and I know that he said he would be willing to do that. Of course, I want to be involved as well, but I just open it up to discussion here at the council tonight so we can begin to talk about our needs and the thoughts of the council members. And so anybody who wants to start, feel free to jump in.
I want in.
I saw Mr. Pittman first.
I would volunteer to be on that committee if that's something you want to do. I think it's a good idea. I think it's, I don't know what timeline is realistic, but I think it's something we're going to, we have no option as far as moving to some sort of new building in the future, so.
All right. Ms. Campos?
I want in. I don't want to paint the police building anymore. I want a new one.
Okay. She don't want to paint it. She wants a new one.
It's full of mold, and we cannot have people working there and expect to work in a healthy environment. And so it's outdated, and nope. We need a new building. I can help with the colors.
Mr. Austin.
If Mr. Urbis would not mind working with the new guy, I would love to be able to be a part of that.
And it may be such a thing as, we consider it as a whole council. Maybe we don't have to have a subcommittee, but it would seem like we need to be able to have a smaller group that reports back here. Ms. Hughes.
I've been rather verbal about nothing against Ms. Campos, but, when she wanted to upgrade the police and fire building, the old City Hall, I was rather verbal about not wanting to put money into that old building and have been adamantly against spending any money or any significant money to increase the, let's call it the cosmetic ability, the cosmetic effect of that building. But for all the 12 years that I've been on this council, we've talked about, we've cussed, we've discussed the fact that we do need one big building to put everybody in, or one big complex to put everyone in. I am very, very much in favor of researching that. I would love to see that done before I go off council, and I got a couple more years.
I hope we can.
Me too, I'm with you on that one.
I hope we can make it happen
I hope so.
in a somewhat reasonable timeline. Of course, the question remains, I assume that everyone is in agreement that we would, if we were to build something like this, we would build it in the footprint of the existing buildings and area where the police department is now.
How much of that area to the south of the police department, do we own that whole block?
We own everything that isn't blacktopped. You could basically distinctly see the Spears offices parking lot area. It's just a different surface.
Okay, so we own all the rest of that except for Spears parking lot and his building, of course.
Mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
Mayor. So Dr. Spears did reach out to me actually 3 weeks ago with interest in negotiating a sale price for his, if we were interested. I told him at that time I didn't know whether that's something we would be interested in or not. We'd have to discuss it.
That would be nice.
He is open to selling that property to us. I think it makes, if the price is right, it makes sense for us to have that property as well.
Yeah, I think so too. He's probably getting close to retiring. Jeff's probably,
He is.
he's as old as I am or older.
I'm sure.
What's that supposed to mean?
He's
I'm
probably
sure the
ready
two
to
sides will
retire.
have
Listen, I worked in ophthalmics and opticianry for long years. He's ready, probably.
And he, I had a long conversation with him, and, he said he was interested in making a reasonable price for the city for that. He didn't want it to be, something that was something unrealistic that we could do. He was open to negotiating that, and, I'm sure, there's a good chance that his idea of reasonable and ours could be, far apart, but he's at least open to having that conversation. So, we could reach out to him and start that and see what that process would,
All right.
That's good.
I'll go around. Mr. Bastian?
Yes, I'm in favor. I think we should, explore our options and see where it leads us down the road.
All right.
Keep all our options open, so it's a long time overdue.
Yeah. Mayor, you mentioned something very interesting about looking for grants with sidewalks upgrade and infrastructure. Do you have any idea where to start looking for that?
I have seen grants in the past that were for specifically, usually public safety centers.
Okay.
I have not seen as many that were grants for, say, city administrative centers as much, although they may be out there and I just haven't seen them. Mr. Urbis?
Well, it's my understanding Carbondale got a significant grant for their public safety building.
Right.
And then we have fire and police department, so that's public safety.
Sure.
Yeah.
We can add the emergency station, that's more public safety. And then,
I think really the best thing I could do in terms of, researching grants is always to lean on Carrie Minnis and Greater Egypt Regional Planning Commission. They've been really good to help the city pursue grants, and they've pulled in some grants for us. So I will make a note, and Sandra, please remind me, if she's already left, actually.
She said she'll be back.
Someone remind me to reach out to Carrie and ask him to research that, and I guarantee you, he's a professional, he works hard, he'll get back to us with some options.
okay.
We pay membership dues to them, so we may as well use them.
Yes.
Mr. McCollum?
Get your committee together and move forward.
Okay, all right. Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I'm all for new public safety building and a new city hall. But like I said, I worked in that old building downtown for 20 years, and we put 5 roofs on there. In that time. Still leaks.
I think, Russell, you were the one who told me that when they built that building, Joe Williams was the mayor.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he didn't ask anybody what to do or anything else. He just went out and hired a contractor to build the building.
Paid for it.
Yeah. So I thought about taking that approach, but Mr. Urbis.
Well, we own the city annex building too, correct?
We do own the annex.
So, that's potential to sell that.
Right.
Oh, yeah, you could, if you, put that in, that real estate out there to sell that, that's going to have a little money to put into.
Sure.
I mean, we may be able to sell public works, who knows?
Ms. Curry-Witzman?
I am all in favor of a new building.
Okay, well, I will put together that committee, and then we'll make sure that it is reporting back to the council at least quarterly, and we're going to try to make some progress with that. Anything else before I move on? No? All right, I just wanted to touch on the Brown Shoe Factory. The city, of course, had worked with Ms. Holman to push in a portion of it that was unstable and threatening 19th Street and the sidewalk there, and then was fenced off. I know that Ms. Holman has made all the payments that she's been required to make under the agreement with her, but the property itself is continuing to deteriorate. The portion inside the fence during the summer months as no longer seems to me that anyone is mowing it, and I feel like we're just, of course, going to continue. I don't have to feel like it, I know we're going to continue to deal with problems there. WJ, I think there was somebody that had reached out to you some months ago about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a couple people that live on Division Street, and so that alley butts up against that. I mean, a couple of them have made significant improvements to their properties there, and you look out their backyard, and that's what they stare at every day. It's rough. It looks bad.
Yeah.
Well, I know that this will be sort of a radical thought, but at some point, because we know Ms. Holman does not have the funds to clean that up, at some point we're going to have to explore something to tackle that. And whether it is working with one of our nonprofits like the Southern Illinois Foundation, or looking to consider to take over that property ourselves so that a nonprofit can pursue grant funding to get it cleaned up. It has really bothered me ever since I've been mayor of Murphysboro that thing sits there as just a big eyesore. And I know a lot of people don't travel down there, and so you don't think about it daily, but it is really a drag on that neighborhood tremendously. And I'm going to try to get refocused on that in this term and try to figure out a way to solve that over the next 4 years if it's in any way humanly possible, because it's the biggest eyesore in Murphysboro, but we don't think about it because it's down there in that neighborhood. So I haven't had my brick in front of me since we've been here. I need to get it moved over.
Well, at one time we applied for a grant for some of the cleanup and we didn't get it. I thought we were going to reapply at some point.
Yes, I remember, I believe Emily Burke had came to the council and pursued a grant that wasn't successful. I really would like to get, maybe an environmental consultant or something to give us a full report there, because everything I've ever heard about getting it cleaned up, I think, has been speculation. And I've heard numbers like $800,000. Well, I don't know if that's really a solid number or not. And so maybe a good first step would be for the city to work with Ms. Holman to just get a true hardline estimate on what it would cost, so that maybe we could even work with her some way so that she could pursue those grant dollars. Because until we know the dollar amount, it's going to be hard to take any real action.
Well, what about Greater Egyptian?
Greater Egypt would be a good one to question about that as well. So I'll add that to the list, and I don't know why I didn't think about them for that. So just something I want to focus on as we go forward.
Is Emily still working with grants like that? I mean, she perhaps would...
The last I knew, Emily had taken a job with the Walker's Bluff development.
Oh, yeah.
And was primarily, and I think exclusively, working for that group.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I believe we have Mr. Carl Clover here with us this evening. I can't exactly tell from the masks.
Yep.
But I did have a conversation with him earlier in the week about the cemetery maintenance. Carl, did you want to speak to the council tonight about anything? I don't mean to put you on the spot. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But
I just want to get it cleared up on the payment. We got two different things here. My understanding of the agreement was we do it 21 times for 42,000. Then this contract, you have to go by the city building to pick up. And it don't say anything in there about stretching over 12 months. So, here's the one I looked at the bid on. Then you slide this in here for 12 months. We can't operate on that kind of budget and meet our payroll. Because my understanding was, and it says right in here, our work time is from April 1st to August 31st.
But
that's our mowing, 21 months. And you said that, you told me that was our work period. Mr. McComb sent me up at Hooks last winter and told me I should got there in December filling in cemeteries. So, this one says for this period here from April to August.
Well, the contract that the council adopted was for a flat amount, I believe you said $42,000.
For 21 months.
That would be paid out over the course of 12 months. That was the contract the council adopted.
This is the one right here you had me go by the building to pick up, and it does not say that in there. 2 days before, they shoved this one out the window for me to sign.
Well, yeah, I appreciate the fact that sometimes paperwork gets, passed out. There may be an error or lacking or whatever, and I understand that. All I know is I talked to Sandra earlier about it, and the contract that was adopted by the council was a contract that contemplated a flat amount paid out in even amounts over the course of 12 months. Now, I'm sure that we may be willing to, reconsider the way we're paying you, but I feel like that's going to take a vote of the city council to amend what they have already acted on. Richard, am I speaking correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. So your request, Mr. Urbis.
Well, was the mowing period still just April to October, just being paid over 12 months?
This one here says from April 1st to August 31st. That's my work period. So I'm not for sure why I should have to do this job in 5 months and have to wait 12 months to get my money. And that's what it is.
All right. So what your request is for us to amend the contract to pay you that amount over the course of what the April to August the 31st?
Just like we did last year, for 2 weeks. Very simple.
All right. Thoughts from the council, Mr. Bastian?
I mean, I don't see why we can't. I mean,
it's the same amount
why
of money
not?
regardless.
It's the same amount of money. I mean,
Okay.
I mean, I'm okay with it. That's just my thought. But
All right. Well, is somebody wanting to make a motion?
Does he,
I don't think we can.
Say, Mayor, there's nothing on the agenda that we're changing.
Excuse me.
Cannot even vote.
it has to be on the agenda. Yeah.
Everybody
I agree.
knows exactly what's in front of us.
Right.
Okay. Thank you for catching that. I got carried away there.
Can we include the current contract in the packet for next meeting then? And
Yes.
yeah, I'd like to see that too.
We'll get this on the agenda, Carl, for the next
make
meeting.
sure.
And we'll be able to act on it then. Officially, we can't act on it tonight because it wasn't on the agenda.
Will wouldn't, I know the guys give up the contract, but their contract was for a whole year, wasn't it?
Yes.
And I didn't think
What the other guy was doing was a whole year.
And I didn't
His
think it
payments
was
would
a
be
limited
stretched out
amount
over
of
12
mows
months.
either, right?
And I don't know if they've changed that. Of course, they can't deny it anyway. But that's the way the bid was put out when we got the two bids the last time, was maintenance for a year.
Mr. Pittman?
And I didn't think it was specified a certain number of mows in this contract either, I thought.
I thought it said 21.
Did it? Okay.
That was a minimum that it had to be mowed.
Okay.
And so we were sort of setting a baseline.
Right, okay.
Mr. Urbis?
Do we not need mowing past August 31st? I mean,
No, October.
well, he said August. I thought he said August.
He did say it.
It's in your contract. You're the one who wrote it up, not me.
Well, I can't see it, so I don't know.
Want a copy of it here?
No, not right now, but I'm just saying we need mowing beyond August 31st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
The agreement is if we have to mow past August 31st, we mow it for nothing.
that is correct.
We know that going into this.
Right.
Not a problem there.
Okay.
But this paper here tells me that we're going to do it 21 mows for $42,000, and it says nothing in here about stretching over 12 months. And this is the one the mayor had me go by the building and pick up and read 2 days prior to I signed this one. You know, if you're going to change it, call the contractor and tell them we're going to change it before you sign it.
Well, nobody's trying to pull a bait and switch on you, Carl. It's just a simple mix-up of two contracts that have different wording, so...
Well, I understand that, but look here. We got night and day, plain and simple.
Yeah, I never thought I'd see more difficulty in getting the cemeteries mowed, but we will get it on the agenda for the next meeting, and we will get it considered, and I think we got the votes here to make the amendment and the change, because we're going to have to keep the cemeteries mowed. All right? All right. All right, we'll go to council member requests. I'll go to Ms. Hughes.
Nothing, thank you.
Ms. Curry-Witzman.
I don't have anything.
Mr. Brown?
Nothing.
Mr. McComb?
Yeah, are we going to send McDonald's a letter and Kroger's that we're going to shut that intersection off? That traffic at McDonald's is backing up all the way to 127. Are we going to wait till we have a bad wreck out there? Or do we need to threaten to shut that intersection off? They can get somebody out there. You go to Belleville and places like that, they got somebody to direct the traffic in the parking lots. But they don't out there, and we're going to end up with a wreck out there one of these days.
Gary, I agree with you. I've seen it numerous times. I actually did call the chief one day. I was heading out that way, and they were backed up on 127.
That's all.
And
Yeah,
people were
and
trying
they
to get
need
around
to,
them, and
It's
it's
a highway.
ridiculous.
Fill that pothole, dig it out through there and add about 10 inches of concrete, about 20 feet up through there, instead of us going out, out there and doing anything, because that coal patch, it's already a big hole again.
Well, and it was filled today.
Right.
By Kroger Corporation.
By who?
By
Kroger?
Kroger hired Simons to come out and saw it out and fill it. So thankfully...
Well, I
they did
wasn't
get-
out there today, but I know the traffic is backing up all the way into 127. And we're going to have a wreck out there, and we just need to fire a couple of letters off to them, I guess McDonald's, to get something done.
I mean,
Yeah, it's almost like they need to hire somebody to just help because they have enough room there probably to add a second lane.
But somebody's scared to pull up beside somebody else because they can't get back in line. I mean,
Yeah. And I eat there occasionally, but their burgers must have got better, because, I mean,
if we shut it off, they can back up to the service station.
so.
I don't think it's the burgers getting better. I think it's nobody's eating inside. Everybody's doing takeouts and.
Yeah, well, that's part of it too.
And that's what it is. So
Well, they do the same thing at Dairy Queen on Walnut Street.
And they probably don't have.
That's the only thing I have,
You're
Will.
right.
On Walnut Street.
But
Sounds like
McDonald's,
somebody
they
needs to
have
open a
highway.
Sonic or something and alleviate some of the
They
traffic.
also may
on
not
it.
have enough employees
What about
working
Red Robin?
as well.
They're gonna have.
It is our right to close that intersection off, isn't it?
Well, I don't know if that's IDOT right-of-way hitting private property. There, to be honest, I don't know.
I don't either.
I mean, off of
Richard,
industrial
do you
park.
know?
From the information given to me by IDOT, in response to my letter to them regarding the pothole question, I believe that's IDOT right of way up to the second entrance.
Okay. Well, maybe we need to ask them to do something.
All
We
right.
can always call them and ask them, But it is a bad situation.
I agree.
It's only going to get worse. I understand they don't want to open up because then they have to do the extra cleaning.
Right.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Aren't
Thank
they
you,
under
Gary.
New management.
Clerk Hunziker.
Under new management. I don't know.
All right. Mr. Urbis.
Nothing, thank you.
Mr. Austin.
So thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Mr. Bastian.
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Ms. Campos.
I just have a question. Our last meeting, we received an application or signatures for Ms. Elizabeth to fill up the vacancy of Mr. Pearson. What's going to be the process? Do we need to take more applications, or are we moving on or putting that on the agenda to make a motion? What is the process, Mayor?
Well, the council appointments are the mayor's appointments with the advice, consent of the council. So essentially, I appoint somebody, and then if 5 members of the council agree, then they're appointed. I have had 2 people, of course, Ms. Byrd and also Mr. Gladden have reached out to me and expressed interest. I have not had anyone else express interest. I did meet with Ms. Byrd today for about 45 minutes, talked about her interest in the position, and I plan on making a decision sometime, hopefully, definitely before the next meeting, and probably by the end of this week. So, and I have called around. I don't know if I've called everybody, just sort of asking their thoughts on the appointment. I know at one time we even, I think, did a interviews. We put together a few members of the council and interviewed people. But of course, when we appointed that way, the person quit after, I think, 3 months. So that doesn't mean anything, but that's just how it went. So that's what I can tell you about it.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Girl,
Mr.
well,
Pittman?
Nice.
I'd just like to welcome Mr. Austin. Other than that, nothing.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Austin.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to department head requests. I'll go to Attorney Blake.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah. Just one item. This is a matter we look to have on the agenda at the next city council meeting. It involves the Mount Carbon Christian Church property. That's 4890 Brick Road. It actually lies outside of the city limits. It does adjoin the city limits. The city of Murphysboro zones that property under the city's 1.5-mile zoning authority. It's currently zoned as SR2 single-family residence. There is a contract purchaser for that property from the church who submitted a request to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a change of the zoning, which the Zoning Board of Appeals had made a report recommending a change of zoning from SR1 to A1, which is agricultural district. I know the owner is projecting to have a business there to do with the manufacture and selling of cider in some capacity. I'm just giving you an alert. We have the church representatives with this contract purchaser have agreed to enter into an annexation agreement with the city, agreeing to annex that property to the city, and the city in return agreeing to a change of that zoning. We have noticed up to have a public hearing before the next city council meeting on May 25th, which is a requirement for an annexation agreement. So at the next meeting, we will look to have a public hearing at 5:45 before the meeting, and then have as an item to consider on the agenda the annexation agreement, which would, if it is approved, which would entail an annexation of that property to the city, and then a change of that zoning to the property. Just kind of giving an alert now. I know that the contract purchaser, an individual by the name of Shelby Ladd, she will intend to be here for that public hearing for any questions that the council would have.
What's the church?
Mount Carbon Christian Church.
Where is it?
It's they're at William Street and Old Brick Road.
Okay.
Right at that intersection.
Yeah, it's up on the, and it's changing to a commercial.
It's changing from residential to agricultural, which does allow limited commercial activities, and this would, what she's intending to do would be one of those limited activities which would be allowed in agricultural.
Okay.
Yeah, that's on the, yeah.
All right, Richard, thank you.
You're welcome.
That church up on the hill.
All right, we'll go to Scott Evans. Okay. Harold Sheffer.
I did text Bill Center, and I will double check the price, but for the quantity that's shown on there, the price would be around $32,500.
So it was less.
So it was less.
So we can do it.
So you're happy to stick to your previous number. Yeah.
He worked on them figures hard real quick, didn't he, Will?
He's off work, so I want to double check this morning. So.
Okay. Well, you don't trust his numbers after a certain time at night?
No, he doesn't do that.
Okay. All right. Chief McBride.
Nothing, sir.
All right. Chief Ellermeyer.
Nothing, thank you.
Eric Kennedy.
No.
Tim Lee.
Nothing.
Brian Manwaring.
Nothing.
Darren Mills.
Nothing.
Pat Gladson.
Yes, I'd like to request permission to surplus that old Jeep, or if anybody has any suggestions on what to do with the Jeep.
I was talking earlier this morning with Sandra Ripley, and I suggested that perhaps we could take not only the Jeep that Pat has been driving, but also the van that Blaine has been driving, surplus both of them, auction them, and then take the money from those, put it together, and purchase something new for code so that we can get away from the big blue paddy wagon van that Blaine's been driving around.
They're going to write him up.
It doesn't fit us.
So that's my thought. I don't think anybody has any objection to surplusing the Jeep, do we?
Jim Stewart might want to buy it.
Yeah, sell it to Jim.
Yeah, see if Jim wants it.
He can feel nostalgic. It would have to be on the agenda to surplus that, so we'll get that on the agenda, Pat, and we'll get that done, and then I may suggest we do the same thing with that van as well. Thank you. Ms. Volley?
Nothing, thank you.
All right, who am I missing? Anybody?
Sandra's gone.
Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.